All right, let's dive into one of the most fundamental tools in the entire TypeScript toolkit, classes. Think of them as the master blueprints for your code. They're how we build things that are structured, scalable, and, reusable. It's how we turn those big, complex ideas into something real. So let's get right to it. When you think about it, all complex things are built from some kind of plan. I mean, you wouldn't just start throwing up bricks and hope a skyscraper appears, right? Or just start welding random metal parts together to make a car. No way. Every single one of those things starts with a super detailed plan, a blueprint. It lays out the structure, all the different parts, and exactly how they're all supposed to fit and work together. And it is exactly the same idea when it comes to writing code. When we're building these big, complex applications, we absolutely need a plan. We need a way to make sure all the pieces of our program are predictable, consistent, and well-organized. So the question is, what's the plan for our code? Well, that brings us to the star of our show today, the class. In TypeScript, a class is pretty much the master plan we use to structure our code, especially when we're working with objects.
So what is a class really? At its core, it's a blueprint for creating objects. It bundles together two key things: the data an object will hold, we call these its properties, and the actions it can perform, which we call its methods. The whole point is to package all of that up into a single, neat, and totally reusable unit.
Okay, enough with the theory, right? Let's actually get our hands dirty and draft our very first blueprint. We're going to build a really simple person class, right, from scratch. So let's picture ourselves drafting this out. We start with that class keyword, followed by the name, person. Inside the curly braces, we first define its properties. This is the what it is part. So we'll give it a name, which is a string, and an age, which is a number. Next up is the constructor. This is a special method that's all about setting things up. It runs automatically whenever we create a new person. And finally, we give it some behavior, the what it can do part. Let's add a simple greet method. Okay, so we've got the blueprint. How do we actually, build something with it? This is where the new keyword comes in. I like to think of it as sending our person blueprint off to the factory. That simple command tells the system, hey, construct a new object based on this plan. We call that new object an instance of the class. And you can see we pass in the starting data, like Alice and 30. And that goes straight into the constructor to get everything set up. And boom, here's the payoff. As soon as our person object is created, we can just call its greet method. It'll take the specific data we gave it, Alice and 30, and use it to do its thing. In this case, spitting out a personalized message. Just like that, we've built a real, functional object straight from our plan. Pretty cool, right? Okay, that's great. But what if we need a blueprint that's a bit more specialized? Do we have to start all over again from scratch? Nope. And this is where things get really powerful. We can actually build on top of the blueprints we already have. This idea is called inheritance. Check this out. On the left, there's our good old person class. But on the right, we've got a new employee class that extends person. That extends keyword is magic. It means the employee class automatically gets everything, all the properties and methods from person for free. It's like taking the original person blueprint, making a copy, and then just adding the new stuff you need, like a job title. This is a huge win for reusing code. Now there's one really, really important thing to remember when you're doing this. It's this little keyword, super. See, when the employee's constructor runs, its very first job has to be calling super. That tells TypeScript to go run the constructor of the parent class, in this case, person. This makes sure that the basic stuff, the name and age, are all set up properly before we start adding on the new job title. So, basic classes and inheritance, already super powerful. But TypeScript gives us even more fine-grained control with some advanced features. Think of these like the specialized tools in a workshop for when you need to do something very specific. First up, let's talk about access modifiers. You've got three main ones: public, private, and protected. These little keywords are all about controlling who can see and use the different parts of your class. It's all about setting boundaries and protecting your data, a concept we call encapsulation. And to make this super clear, these analogies are perfect. Public is like a public park. It's wide open, anyone can go in and use it. Protected is more like a family-only area. The original class and any classes that inherit from it, its children, can access it, but nobody else. And finally, private. This is like a personal diary. It is completely locked down. Only the class itself can ever look inside. Not even its children can. All right, next up, we have something called an abstract class. This is a really interesting one.
Think of it as a blueprint that's, well, incomplete on purpose. You can't actually use new to create an object directly from an abstract class. It's not meant for that. Instead, it acts as base template that other classes must extend from, and then fill in the missing pieces. It's a way to enforce a certain structure. And our last advanced tool is static members. Now, these are properties or methods that belong to the class itself, the blueprint, not to the individual objects you create from it. A great example is some kind of utility function, like calculate sum. It doesn't really make sense for that to belong to one specific instance, right? No, it belongs to the utility class as a whole. You call it directly on the class name. Okay, so classes are awesome, but they don't live in isolation. It's super important to understand how they fit into the bigger TypeScript picture, especially with things like interfaces and modules.
Now, one of the biggest points of confusion for people is the difference between a class and an interface. So let's clear this up right now. A class is the blueprint. It has the rules and the actual implementation, the code that makes it work. You can build real objects from it. An interface, on the other hand, is just a contract. It only describes the rules or the shape that something has to have. It provides zero implementation. It's all about defining a structure, not building it.
So what about sharing all these amazing blueprints across a big project? That's where modules come in, and it's dead simple. You use the export keyword to make your class available to the outside world. Then, in any other file that needs it, you just use import to pull it in. That's it. It's how we keep our code organized and not just one giant file.
All right, let's do a super quick recap of what we've covered. What are the big takeaways? First, classes are your blueprints for objects. Second, inheritance lets you reuse code by building on existing blueprints. Third, modifiers like public and private give you fine-grained control over access. Fourth, remember the difference. Classes define the implementation, while interfaces just define the contract. And finally, modules are how you organize and share all your classes.
At the end of the day, classes give you this incredible power to structure and scale your code in a way that's clean, organized, and really, really powerful. They are the absolute building blocks of so much modern software. So I'll leave you with one final thought. Now that you have the blueprints, what are you going to build?